So as Shell mentioned, I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes or so putting an overview of our content in ArcGIS Online. So this is really a rerun of the presentation we gave at the user conference earlier this year in May time in London. Hopefully quite a few of you were there and attended and enjoyed the day. So what I'm going through is some slides setting the scene, so to talk through our approach and strategy around the provision of content within ArcGIS Online, some of the ways that you can access that content, and then I'm going to demonstrate some of the different layers by using a story map and other methods. And at first, these will be different global content layers, but also some local content as well. Okay, so starting off to really set the scene, I think it seems quite obvious that the content provision within ArcGIS Online is vital to the system. So it forms a layer of contextual mapping, contextual layers that can be used for visualization, can add context to your analysis that you're doing on top of that. But also, increasingly, it's a source of information, of data that's used to underpin different services that we provide. So things such as routing, geocoding, enrichment, landscape analysis, so terrain type analysis, and more on the business side, things like business analysts, reporting and outputs from that side of things. So the content is a range of different layers, static, live, dynamic, and underpinning all of our different applications. So maps, in terms of what we mean by maps, so this is where there's different content layers that are put together and shared. So you're probably all familiar with ArcGIS Online and the concept of a web map and a story map. And there's millions of maps now shared within ArcGIS Online by our user community, by Esri, by partners. And one thing I wanted to talk about in a bit more detail is the Living Atlas of the world. So the Living Atlas is a collection of content that's been curated and organized into different themes. What that means is, as a user, you're able to source, to search on different content themes and have that returned back to you in an easy-to-consume way. What it also means is that the content available in the Living Atlas of the world is also highly curated, and what that means is we have spent to go through certain levels of checks in terms of metadata and provenance to ensure that it applies with a high level of authority, really. So authoritative-based maps that you can rely on and access. And I'll demonstrate this as we go through the presentation. So different themes there are constantly growing. So there's what you'd expect, things like base maps and transportation, but there's more dynamic services in there as well, and remotely sensed data as well. So a really strong set of content that hopefully can underpin all of the different types of applications, the different types of analysis, and different types of use that you have as a customer. What are these themes? Just in a bit more detail. So I won't read them all out because I'll go through this in a bit more detail through the demonstration stage. But really, these are the main groups of themes. One to point out, I guess, as a new or a slight change is imagery and remote sensing. So we've always had imagery in there in terms of satellite and aerial imagery. Remotely sensed data is something that's a bit newer, and that collection has been changed into imagery and remote sensing. What that does really is reflects the incorporation of quite a lot of the new scientific data formats. So things like NetCDS, HDS, GIIB. So these are scientific, remotely sensed, environmental type data that are served up in a format which can then be used for analysis. So the image technology that we have, so the analysis tools that we have, can now work with those layers and do analysis on the fly, which again is something that I'll touch on as we go through. And then some of the other headings that we've got there, demographic and lifestyle is obviously an important one, and I'll talk about that because that's an area that's growing quite a lot. Urban systems covers things like 3D models and planning and land use type application. So there's a huge number of different content layers that fall underneath these main themes. Okay, where does the source of information come from? The sources of data that go into these themes that we talked about. So really, it's from these different areas. So there's content Esri Inc. author or Esri UK author and provide ourselves. There's user content, so content from the community. And again, I'll talk more about this, but this is where there's contributions from different organisations that form part of the different map services, the base maps, etc., that are being provided. And then there's partner content as well. So partners such as DigitalGlobe and HERE and a number of others contribute their content, go into different map services, either as premium content or subscription content. So those are the key sources that feed into the map services that we're talking about today. The community content, so it's not about base maps. It also includes 3D, it includes innovation, it includes information that's used within geocoding services and landscape. So all of these different themes, it's not just about base mapping in there. And again, I'll provide a bit more information as we go along. Local content. So what we mean by this is content for the UK or for Great Britain, in particular for these services that we're seeing here. So since we first launched our Great Britain map services in 2010, and since had a really good uptake, lots of use, and it's provided value back to our customers. So these are base maps and services for Great Britain in national grid, so in our national projection, primarily Ordnance Survey sources. So we've taken a lot of the really good content that Ordnance Survey have been making available as open data and incorporated that into different base maps in different styles to underpin your analysis and the work that you're doing. We also have premium base maps as well. So these are subscription services mainly for PMSA users, so master map information, for example, and premium raster information. And we're also incorporating some census demographic information in there as well. And these services can be accessed through a couple of different ways that I'll show as we go through this, but recently we've been adding them to the Atlas of the World, which we just talked about, and I'll show that so you can access them through that portal as well. And in the roadmap, we're looking on the premium side, we're looking at feedback that we've had from customers, and we're working on things like a WMS service for master map, offline caches, and also a snapping toolbar to enable you to, in desktop, to snap to features within master map using these services. So it's a advanced team now that's underpinning these map services. Okay, how do we access the content in different ways? So quite a few different ways really. ArcGIS Online, obviously, through arcgis.com is way, and there's a carousel of maps there, and you can log in and sign in rather, and through the map window you can access it there. Living Atlas of the World web app that I'll demonstrate shortly is a really nice way of looking at different collections that we've been talking about and exploring those. In desktop you can obviously add base maps and add Living Atlas themes now, which is a fairly new thing. And then we also have the UK base map add-in that's available. So the one in the middle is an interesting one where some of the analysis tools, so through ArcGIS desktop toolbar tools, now are accessing some of these services. So the elevation layers, again, that I'll talk about later, can be accessed, and you can run things like viewshed and profile against those services. Whereas not so long ago you'd have to have a lot of that data locally and run that as a local process. These are now consuming these services and actually format for your analysis, which is really useful in terms of access to global content to enable you to do that. Okay, so what I'll do now is switch from the slides that I've got and move to demonstrate some of these different content themes we're talking about. Hopefully WebEx will keep up. So just switch to a browser quickly. Okay, so what I wanted to start with is the Living Atlas of the World area of ArcGIS Online that I've talked about. So view, you've got the different themes along the left that we talked about, and they've got different views on those. If we quickly look at base maps, it will sort by all of the different base maps that's available there. If we clicked on a subsection of that, user base maps, we've got the Great Britain base maps that we talked about. So these are the base maps using Ordnance Survey open data, and you can go in more detail and explore those through this map window. Look at that data. Hopefully that's coming through okay. And then if you scroll further down, you can find out more information about it. So more of the metadata type information. What's the projection? What's the currency of the data? The sources that go into it? What's the restrictions there? And you also have the ability to open it in the map window. So if you see the map viewer, or open it directly into ArcGIS desktop. Okay, so going back, let's explore a couple more of these quickly. So lots of different themes here, as I said, as I scroll down, there's lots of different ones here. Interesting one in that it's not just about base map and that type of information. You've also got 3D models in here as well, so a number of 3D cities that can be opened up through the City Engine web viewer and through other methods. So huge amounts of different content that's available in there, and I encourage you to have a look and to explore that content and see how that can help with the work that you're doing. So other accessing content that you're probably familiar with, the map viewer, the standard ArcGIS Online map viewer, you can add through this map gallery, which you're probably all familiar with. Also, recently, you can this additional function has been added here, where you can browse living atlas layers. So another way of accessing the information we've just been looking at through the categories. So you can you can sort by the different categories that we were just looking through the browser template, and drop this straight into a web map and start your analysis from there. Okay, so that's a couple of the most common ways to access the content. What I want to do is move across to a story map using the map journal template that I've put together. So this is a map, as I say, which combines a number of the different key data sets that we've talked about. So it's quite a way of being able to bind different sources together and to step through those with a bit of information. So again, hopefully Bex will catch up, and I'll try not to be too hectic when I'm moving around the map. So yeah, so really we've talked about the fact that there's lots of different content available, and it can be accessed in different ways. So now I want to explore some of that content with you and show you some of the different details, some of the highlights perhaps, and how we're using it, how it can be used by different applications in different ways. So starting off with little base maps, these are different styles of base maps that can be accessed. And the kind of the theory behind having the different styles, obviously, that it gives choice as a user in terms of the type of analysis that you're doing over the top of these base maps, perhaps, or how you're using them in terms of a backdrop to other analysis, or as part of an application for visualization of data. So you have different base maps that will give you different styles. So this particular one that we're looking at is called the World Topographic Base Map. As the name suggests, this is sort of focusing on quite a rich cartographic display. So it includes spot heights, it includes contours, it includes hill shading, it includes rivers and lakes and that type of information. But also it does actually have quite a lot of detailed urban information as well. So there's building outlines in this data set, generalized building outlines in different areas, and it's multi-scale as well. So the topographic base map is one that we have contributed for in the UK for the last 4 or 5 years or so, using primarily Ordnance Survey open data fused with other data sources. So we've sourced other information like the individual spot heights and names of mountains and hills, just to have that context to it. And we're currently looking at updating the next version of the topographic base map for the UK using, or for DB I should say, using Ordnance Survey, the latest open data that's surveyed, and Open Map Local, I think it's called, to enhance it further. Okay, talks about topic base map, and I'll touch on that when I talk about community maps. But some of the other base maps that are available that you may be familiar with. So this is a world streets map. So this includes again different. Again, it's global. So I'll pan out a bit. You can see that. But it's a slightly different style. The focus is more about the roads and the navigation. So perhaps for a tracking application, perhaps for more of a sort of a gated type application, this one might be more appropriate than the topographic base map. And then we also have these more sort of muted maps, which are called canvases. So there's a dark and a light grey canvas. Quite a dark myself, but this is a base map again where it's particularly muted to enable you to put other analysis layers on top. I suppose it's really for when you're designing an application or an output where you want the analysis, the layers that you're going to load over the top to be the dominant feature as opposed to the base map. So it's just giving you choice in terms of what you do and how you access the data. So there's a grey, there's a light grey, which is even more muted. And then there's a more specific base maps as well. So National Geographic style, obviously a partner base map, which is a particular style that people are familiar with. OpenStreetMap. Again, OpenStreetMap has some really great crowdsourced information that people contribute to, and this can be used for certain applications where you want a certain level of detail. If I zoom in somewhere in Europe, we've got some really good detail in there. Okay, it is. Okay, it's just working its way through. So yeah, rich detail there in Lille. Just coming through. Okay. Now, more sort of user-specific or application-specific base maps that are available as well. Things like the oceans base map. So really looking base map. But again, it's a different use case. It's a different scenario that you might use this base map in. So the focus is on the oceans, as the name suggests, and it looks at the bathymetry and the depth of the ocean and has it symbolised and cartographically styled in that way. A recent addition is the Arctic's ocean base map. So this is basically taking data for the Arctic area and having it in a specific projection. So it went live earlier this month, and it's in the Alaska Polar Stereographic Projection. There's a complementary imagery service to go with this as well, called the Arctic Imagery Service. So I think that's probably the base maps for now. We've talked about the GB content. We've talked about that there's rural and urban content in there, down to quite large scales, and that we're adding and updating this base map with additional open data as it becomes available. So what I'll now go on to is the next heading, which is global imagery. And again, this is one of the most popular base maps. It's a multi-scale base map, as you imagine. So it's global, small scale at global levels, down to much larger imagery in the high resolution areas. So the imagery has a metadata service behind it. So what that means, this just appears, is that I can actually click on an image and it will return metadata about the image. So the date that is captured, the resolution, so 30 centimetre there. So that level of detail as well if you need to check what is the currency of this imagery that we're looking at. And other updates that have happened to the imagery recently include there's ongoing programs to update European cities. So 30 centimetre high resolution imagery has been added for European cities. A recent update in the US includes the National Agricultural Imagery Program imagery. So this is 2014 the currency imagery rather, for about 25 states in the US. That's been added there as well. So what I wanted to talk about next was more about the remotely sensed information. So the the multispectral type imagery that's available. This will come through. Okay, what this is a Landsat 8 story map that's embedded within my map journal. So kind of a story map within a story map. So hopefully that will appear okay. Okay, it's a really nice one of in terms of if you want to explore some of the different sources that are available of that imagery and have a look at that information, have a look at that data with some story map type information, so some commentary to talk about that as you go along. So really impressive images are here, and they are multispectral, which means you can actually do some analysis with them. So that's what I'll show you briefly now. So this is a Landsat image of the Bahamas, and it'll show you that because it's multispectral, you can actually pick out some of the under the surface water features as well for coral reefs in this example. It's not just static imagery; it's imagery that you can query. So there's metadata behind it, which will tell you about, again, the source. So that's fairly recently, 2014. But you can also look at interrogating that imagery as well. So if I clicked on, just bringing up that tool, clicked on a point here, I can look at the spectral profile of that image. So what's the makeup of the different bands that go into that image in that particular area? And you can also access time series analysis as well. So just demonstrate that. I won't go through all of these. I will pick a different one we've got here, which is a good example. Hopefully that's come through okay. So this is an NDVI, so normalized difference vegetation index. So this is an area of Nigeria, I think it is, and dark green is where there's sort of healthier, thick vegetation, and brown represents the sparse vegetation, basically where vegetation has been removed or is growing currently. So what I wanted to show you here is just the fact that you can start to look at imagery on a time series analysis as well. So if I just switched it to let's look back a couple of years. And what we do with this slider is look through the image over time. So how has that image changed? How has that image changed rather? Sorry, with the different image. So you can see some quite big changes as you go back through the years. You can see that changing in terms of the areas, in terms of the sparse vegetation, in terms of the darker vegetation, which is seasonality, but there might be something else going on there in terms of development as well. So I guess what we're trying to, just in a very simple form, what I'm trying to demonstrate here really is that the imagery and the imagery services we're having now are not just static maps. They are data sets that you can interact with, that you can carry out analysis on. And I think it's a trend in terms of the content that are becoming available, the services that are coming available. They are much more than just static images and static base maps now. Okay, other examples, just moving away from that story map. This ODIS data, so this is data that's updated regularly, and there's lots of different, again, if you look in the Living Atlas, there's lots of different views using MODIS data, so looking at vegetation analysis, looking at change over time of different types of features. There's Landsat 8 analytical information in there as well. Finally, just to tie up on the imagery, the Arctic base map we talked about, there's also this Arctic imagery base map, so in the projection of the ocean's base map that can be used. So it's quite detailed imagery there as well. So that's the imagery. I'm now going to move to community maps. Now, community maps, talked about in the slide earlier, is really a program where we're encouraging our user community and partner community to contribute different content layers into our base maps and other services. And the reason you might want to do that as a customer, as a contributor, is that providing your content, it means it will go into a base map that then you can consume back. So it probably works the best actually as a concept, as a program is in the States. So lots of different county level organisations or county level government effectively offering their content into the different base maps that are then served back within the community base map within the imagery program. What it means really is that they don't have to host and share that out to their own users. They can consume it in one base map that Esri looks after, provides, provisions. It's going to be up and running all the time. It's merged with other data, so you've got a consistent look and feel. So here's some I just wanted to run through a few examples. So in Chicago, the content has been there by the local government, and you've got some really detailed level of information, not only mapping but points of interest type information, so business locations as well, down to quite detailed mapping of vegetation as well in some areas. So closer to home, in the Netherlands has a very strong open data policy, so virtually everything is open in terms of the national cadastral mapping. In the Netherlands, they have added into the community base maps. Again, this is the same global base map that we've been looking at, the topographic base map. So they've added really detailed content. So we've got details of trees there. We've got, if I go into the next layer, again, I hope WebEx is keeping up here. We've got very detailed building. There we go. So we've got individual, master map style buildings, individual definitions of the different buildings with the trees and detail there as well. And then also there's address information there. So you've got individual addresses that have been added into the map as well. So you've got the addresses and the mapping all together in one. And community maps is not about the mapping. It's not just about the topographic base map. It's also about imagery. So no prizes in the airport is Rotterdam, and this is really high resolution. I think it's 10 centimetre imagery here. The city of Rotterdam has contributed to the world imagery layer, and that means again that's fed into the global world imagery service, and that means when you zoom to Rotterdam, to the Netherlands, you can access this imagery. Germany is a similar story as well. There's some really detailed imagery in Berlin and other areas of city. So the city organisations, the city governments of others, has contributed the back mapping into the graphic base map, but also into the imagery as well. And further afield, Japan is a nice example because they have really localised what they're doing. So they've taken, again, this is within the same community base map. You zoom to Japan, and you've got multilingual labels for the mapping there. So you've got the Japanese characters, and you've also got the Western character sets there as well. So it's a good example of having the base map that's then further localised. So it's the sort of same look feel in terms of the style, but it's been localised with the labelling and the language. And then in the UK, so we've talked about this already. So this is really the topographic base map that we've been updating, and we've talked about incorporating the latest Ordnance Survey data into that in the coming months. So I'll now switch to local content. So this is the different map services that we've been serving in Esri UK in British National Grid that now can access through the Living Atlas of the World straight in ArcGIS Online. And again, we've taken the approach of making different base maps in different styles to allow you to do different types of analysis. So this is what we're calling the background base map, so a slightly more muted style, just zooming in on a larger scale. So there we go. So that's, as I say, slightly more muted, and then we also have a Carto version, which is more of a stronger cartographic look and feel, so slightly more vibrant colours, lighter colours. And again, for Great Britain and England, Scotland, Wales, we also have raster information and also premium base maps as well. What I'll do quickly is an example of the latest data and how that compares on the two base maps. So this is our latest base map that uses the Open Data Local. I'll zoom into large scale, and the previous one that was using Vector Map District. So these are free to access base maps. This template I'm using here, when it is up, is just the compare template. So the two map windows are linked together. On the left, we've got the new style, which uses the Open Map Local. On the right, we've got the old or the existing version. If I zoom to somewhere fairly large scale, so that's what you'll see in the latest data on the left is not just difference in the topography, but detail in the buildings is quite is increased quite a lot with the Open Data Local, and also the road naming has increased as well as improved because of the advances in the open data or the additional data that's in there. So so it's really good to be able to use the new sources of open data that Ordnance Survey and others are making available and incorporate these into the base maps. So finally, I just wanted to show the pre-base map. So some of you might be aware, but this is a national map service using Ordnance Survey master map data that we serve up for licensed customers, so PSMA customers and customers with a license for master map data. Then it's multi-scale, so as you zoom out, it uses other sources, so it uses VML, and then it will use open data as you go further out from that. And one of the things I suppose to say about local content is what we are offering as a service now as well is the ability to have a bespoke map. So if you as an organisation want something that's slightly different in terms of the look and feel of the map, we can build that using our cartographic services and deliver it to you either through ArcGIS Online, through ArcGIS Online account, or on disk as a map cache that you can then point your ArcGIS server at within your organisation and use it that way. So it's just ability in terms of how we deliver that to you, and if you want a different style or different level of content, then we can do that. Okay, so moving on to demographics and lifestyle. So I think this is an area that's been a lot of effort in over the last few years to try and build the content globally. I guess the reason why it's important is the demographic side of things in a number of our different services. So things like geo-enrichment uses a lot of demographics. Things like Business Analyst Online and Business Analyst will use demographics. Such as the reporting and the analytical capabilities use the demographics. What I'm trying to show now is a coverage-based map. This is a story mapping in the coverage. It seems to be showing a bit, so I'll maybe just move on from that one. So basically, the demographic data has been updated quite a lot recently. There's now 45 countries globally with fairly detailed demographic data that's available. Geo-enrichment in the platform. That last story map actually excuse me, enables you to look at the coverage and look at the level of detail and currency available in each country. What we're doing in the UK is taking the 2011 census, building that into a story of into a series of map services, and this is a story map that we did taking that data. And again, it's not cached information; it's cached data. It's more dynamic. So if you click on a feature, we've got pop-ups configured that will show the data in different ways, and enable you to gain a bit more insight as to what's going on within that area. So I won't go through this in too much detail, but again, if you search on demographics, there is a story map and there's the underlying maps which you can access in this way. Okay, so next I was going to look at landscape. So landscape is an interesting area. So this is where it's integrated things like digital terrain models and 3D data, and it's underpinning quite a lot of different analysis services that we've talked about. So some of the 3D services, some of the globe services, the scenes will all use this. What I was going to focus on was just an example of using a terrain layer within the map view, and the fact that you can again do things with it. So we've got the graphic-based map, and we've got the World Terrain Service. And what I'll do is just take to move into an area of Wales where there are some slightly high mountains. This is Cadarid in Wales. So it's the second largest mountain in Wales, Snowdon. So something like nearly 900 meters. And this particular service, so I've just got this as a slide transparent. The service is, again, this is an example where we've incorporated open data. So we've used the Ordnance Survey Open Terrain 50 into this service. And again, if I click on the metadata, you can see that. And what we hope to do is incorporate the Environment Agency LiDAR data, which many of you are aware is being released as open data towards the end of this year. We hope to incorporate that into this service, so it adds to the resolution again, and adds to the accuracy of the analysis that can be carried out. So to show you again that this is a more dynamic service, I'm going to quickly look at the way that you can actually change on the fly how this is rendered. So we've got, as I say, we've got the World Terrain service here. I just want to have a quick look at what the aspect is like in this area, and I can just quickly apply that to the service. Steering is looking at just doing a render on that terrain model to give you a view as to where the aspect is around that area. And there's others that can be applied here as well, so you can apply slope degrees, slope percentage, an aspect map in a slightly more colourful format. There we go, and a number of others as well. So again, quite a simple bit of analysis, but hopefully just show that these services can now be consumed and interacted with and worked with in different ways within the platform. So what I now wanted to look at was the services. So this is a really interesting set of new services. Live services. This is the World Traffic Service. So this is a service that comes from maps that we use for a lot of the routing services within ArcGIS Online and on-premise products as well. And this service is basically a live service, so it's updated every 15 minutes. Every link of road has a simple traffic light status. So red is bad, slow, as in lots of traffic not moving. Amber is kind of in the middle, and green free flowing. So this is updated every 15 minutes, as I said, and we've also got these instant information here as well. You can review exactly what's going on in terms of the traffic conditions in there. And this is just a visual aid to show you what's going on in terms of traffic, and it's updated frequently. But it also feeds into our routing services, so that means when you carry out a route solve, so from one place to another, it will use this traffic in the background to determine what routes will be taken and to influence the drive time that's output from there. Okay, so other live services, there's quite a wide range, and again, I would encourage you to have a look at those through the Living Atlas. This one's quite an interesting one. So this is basically global wind speed. So this has got the direction and the speed of the winds, and I'll show this a bit later on do a bit of analysis around some tree data. So this has it has the direction and the speed of the wind, and again, it's a live service. And then we also have more on the incident side of things. We have an active hurricane and typhoon service as well. So that can be accessed through here as well. Thankfully, there's no hurricanes or typhoons at the moment, which is good. So finally, I was going to move on to just an example of some analysis. So maybe trying to tie some of these things together and how analysis can be done with data that you might have locally or within your ArcGIS Online accounts and some of these other examples. So what I have here is some analysis we've been working on in the content team, which is basically taking a number of different data sets together and looking at how they can be used in different sort of analysis scenarios. So we have here is a national GB data set from the Met Office, which is gust speed, so wind gust speed on a 4-kilometre grid based on a 1 in 5 year occurrence. So the darker the colour is, the windier the conditions, lighter the colour, the least windy. And then all over the top is the NOAA wind speed direction over the top. So you've got a static kind of modelled data set of wind speed locations combined with what's actually happening at the moment in terms of the wind speed. So combining those two things together. So how could that be used? So, well, what we've got here is, so I changed my bookmark. So I'm just going, so just to explore some of the wind areas. So this is darker the coverage is, the higher the wind. So an area in the Lake District, you can see that you've got some chunks of really high wind exposure there. Down to Dartmoor, you've got some. Sorry, not to Dartmoor. This is in the Highlands of Scotland. So you've got some really, as you probably expect, really some really kind of highly wind exposed areas there. And then it's down to how it could be used. So what we've done is looked at how can we combine these things together into sort of analysis that could be useful. So in this scenario, we're using tree points with heights from partner Blue Sky. So there's a data set called the National Tree Map that we've been involved in with Blue Sky. So a great data set of all trees within the country with heights associated with those. So by combining that with the office gust speed and other data sets, we can look at the risks of trees falling on properties or falling on other features such as high power lines and things like that. So what here is the location of the trees, and we've enriched that with the METOF data. And what I want to now show is just the fact that you can also do within the web viewer now, you can actually do some analysis as well. So I'll just attempt to do a bit of analysis on here as well. So what I want to do is look at trees and their proximity to buildings to start looking at what the potential could be. So just go through this wizard here where it's basically saying, let's look at proximity of the trees to the buildings. Let's look at it as a distance. Let's look at it in a radius of a certain amount, and then let's run that analysis. And hopefully, what should come back is basically an indication of where there are trees within a certain distance of properties, and then we can look at what can be done with that after that stage. So this is just in the background. So obviously this is doing some proper GIS, doing some proximity analysis with data that got hosted in an ArcGIS online account, and it's going to come back with those analysis outputs with a bit of luck. Okay, so what we've got here then is it's returned which locations in purple are the nearest to the tree points. And once we've got information, we can also look at information about those buildings as well. So we've got basically we've done some analysis to calculate the risk based on the wind speed from the Met Office data, and then combine that with the distance to the tree from the building. We can also get a value around what the likely impact is. So that's just quickly showing that the analysis can be done. And once we take it one step further, we can so now just show this. We can now provide a model of all of the buildings in that area and what their risk is in terms of the tree potential damage from the trees. So if I look here, we've got the data that we've calculated. We've got distance to the nearest tree is 3.1 meters. Because we know the height of the tree, we know the wind speed gust in terms of the different return periods. We can determine that using some different calculations around wind speed versus risk of falling over. Where are the highest risk buildings in this area? And just again, using a simple color-coded red equals high, green equals less risk, then we can quickly color-code those buildings. So this is hopefully just demonstrates that you can actually do some quite advanced analysis now within using these different content layers, using a combination of content you might have locally with services through ArcGIS Online. So that's the end of the online demo. What I'll now do is just switch to the final part of the slides, really. So to summarise, in terms of more information, hopefully I've given you a good overview of the different content layers that are available, the different content services, how you access those, some examples of analysis, states as to what we're doing in terms of roadmap. And then if you do want more information, the links below are really good sources of information. So Esri Inc. blog, GeoStrange, Esri content pages, and the Esri UK content pages. The UK content pages have just been updated very recently, actually. So again, I encourage you to have a look there. We've got information about the different content sources. We've got individual product pages about different content that can be added, because we provide content on-premise as well as online for different scenarios of use. So that concludes the presentation from my side. I guess it's back to Jazz to see if there's any questions. So thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.
I didn't realise you couldn't hear me, so I just wanted to remind everyone to put the questions in the chat window, and I've got the first question here for you. So is the UK imagery just shown in BNG projections?
No. So the imagery, the World Imagery Service that we showed you is in Web Mercator projection because it's a global service.
Thank you. And then the next one, can content be accessed from an app built with this API?
Not sure on that one. I think we'd need to take that one away and refer to colleagues. So I will make a note of that.
So we could probably email the answer to that after the webinar?
Yeah.
Okay, and I've got one more question for you. So what do you think the future is for new sources of content in the ArcGIS Online?
Yeah, I think hopefully what we've demonstrated is that there's a move away from having static maps to having more dynamic. There's some of you may have seen some of the presentations or picked up on the user conference that's been going on this week in San Diego. Some of the plenaries online, and there's the more dynamic tiled map services that are coming out that I think is one feature. So this is where instead of having a static cache that's kind of fixed for base mapping, something that's more dynamic that the client can render on the fly and change look and feel automatically. I think that's one thing that's going to obviously that's already in beta, so that's going to be coming along. But I think we're going to see more and more live and dynamic feeds and more remote sense data that underpin some of the analysis tools and more live services like the live traffic and live web that we've been seeing. So it's dynamic services that underpin other analysis tools.
So I've also got a request to show that last slide again with the links. If we should just email those out as
yeah, that's probably because they were quite long links. So yeah.
Okay, so we will email out the recording for the webinar, and also we can send the links then as well.
Great.
And I think that's it then. So thank you, Ivor. Thank you everyone for joining. And I'm gonna end the webinar now. Thank you.